So here is where it starts to get even more depressing with respect to muscle function. Decreased number and size of fast twitch fibers. I think that goes without saying that a person's ability to do high intensity strength and power work is going to be diminished. They're going to have lesser ability for muscle hypertrophy from resistance training as a younger person does. So there are also some data to support the loss of type 1 fibers, so that endurance, that the muscle fibers associated with endurance type activities also atrophy. So and this happens in a lot of disease conditions too, like we'll talk about cancer. Obviously with the high intensity work, smaller stores of ATP, phosphocreatine, glycogen, so high intensity work is going to be diminished, along with many of the enzymes of glycolysis, aerobic metabolism, the Krebs cycle. Neurons, we decrease connections with the neurons, so at the motor unit, the motor neuron and the muscle fiber that it goes to, so those connections do start to die off as we get older, and connective tissue becomes more stiff. So more and more reason why to stress flexibility training as people get older. And that's one thing, you know, flexibility is something people continue to work on throughout the course of their lifetime. Cardiorespiratory changes. You know, we've covered this, that the arteries become less elastic with age, and that leads to higher blood pressure. You're not really going to see changes in heart rate other than, you know, 220 minus age, maximum heart rate is going to go down. You are going to see increases in minute ventilation. So they're going to have a higher frequency of respiration sometimes, but more shallow breathing. The AVO2 difference, so the extraction is going to be different, and that's going to change in older adults. And lactate, so they're going to build up lactate a little bit higher so than what they would normally, and it probably has to do with the loss of those muscle fibers. Decreases in Q, that's cardiac output, and decreases in stroke volume. So, you know, you can see that's going to definitely affect their ability to do aerobic exercise, lower rate of adaptation and recovery from exercise. I know a lot of older adults that said, you know, the higher intensity workouts they used to do, they can do them, it just takes them a lot longer to recover from those. And VO2 max declines about 10% per decade. So, but you can lessen the decline if you remain active. Is it disuse versus disease? And that's the problem. You get a similar physiologic response whether someone has a chronic disease or whether they're just inactive. And really what we want to avoid is what they call the downward spiral. That, you know, if you have a chronic disease, you tend to be less active, and then that makes you even less active, and so it worsens your disease. So they sort of both feed off each other. Some of the students who did their internship in some older adult facilities, they found that, you know, on the days that they weren't there, say there was a holiday during the summertime and the outpatient, the exercise or the rehab area was closed, and they would find that many of the adults just did absolutely nothing on their days off. If they weren't at the facility doing their workouts or their rehab, they pretty much did nothing. So, you know, you really want to keep people active. And I think, you know, it goes without saying, most of you are very familiar with the different types of chronic diseases. And the ones we haven't covered, we're going to cover soon. But you know, these are all going to increase throughout the lifespan, and many people are going to have more than one of these. When we get to fitness testing in older adults, you always want to ask, regardless, who's your client? What is the goal of the fitness test? Now, with a lot of older adults, we really want to keep people independent. So we are going to focus on the functional aspects. All of this as it relates to keeping people healthy, keeping them living longer and better, and keeping them at home versus having them go to a facility. For people who are a little bit more healthy and active, they can focus on their health-related fitness, cardiorespiratory fitness, musculoskeletal, and body comp. And then that very small percent of the older adults who really are still interested and capable of doing performance-based exercise, you may want to look at different types of testing. So you're going to do a body comp test. It's going to have a different meaning for an older adult who's a runner or a swimmer or a triathlete compared to someone who is going to be keeping it independent. So, but it is totally possible to do high performance, strength and conditioning type of testing in older adults who are athletic.